With that hope, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the consideration of the following nomination. Calendar number 239, Michelle Jean Sisson of Maryland, a career member of the Senior Foreign Service Class of Career Ambassador, to be an Assistant Secretary of State for International Organizations. Oh, and that, I'm sorry, that the nomination be confirmed, the motion to reconsider be considered, made, and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate, that no further motions be in order than the nomination, that the President be immediately notified of the Senate's actions.
Is there objection?
President.
Senator from Missouri.
Reserving the right to object, Mr. President. I understand that multiple of my colleagues have objections to all of the nominees that the Senator from New Jersey is going to offer this evening, so I will be here to object on their behalf and also on my own behalf with regard to a few of them. I want to address one of those nominees, Julian Smith, the President's nominee to be United States Ambassador to NATO. This is a nominee to whom I object myself, and I want to explain why briefly. Before I do that, however, I just have to make one comment on the Senate Majority Leader's remarks about his own inability to get these nominees confirmed. Now, I agree that many of these nominees are important, and that is, in fact, one of the reasons we should have a vote on them. The ambassador to NATO, for instance, as I'm about to argue, is a very important position. And the positions that she takes, the arguments that she makes are very important, which is why we ought to go on the record and actually have a vote. But the Senate Majority Leader's comments, as if he has no control over the calendar. He's the majority leader of the United States Senate. He decides when we vote. He decides what we vote on. What are we doing now? The floor is empty. We could be voting. What are we doing later this week? He's gaveling us out of session so that members across the aisle can go on a field trip to Glasgow, Scotland. We could be voting. It's getting a little rich to hear the Senate Majority Leader, who is doing almost nothing. Have we brought up the defense bill? No action. Multiple major issues, no action from the Senate Majority Leader. If these nominees are so critical, he ought to be putting them on the floor for votes. He doesn't want to do that because apparently he can't control the floor, or he just doesn't want to work for very long, or he doesn't want to work for very hard. I mean, I leave that to him. But it is quite ridiculous for him, the Majority Leader, to blame Republicans who cannot prevent votes. Can I just be clear? Republicans do not have the ability to prevent votes on any of these nominees. The filibuster for these nominees doesn't exist. We can vote whenever the Majority Leader wants. It's his decision when to bring them to the floor. Now, I want to comment just on one briefly, on Julian Smith, one nominee tonight to whom I object. This is the President's nominee, as I said a moment ago, to be the next United States Ambassador to NATO. I bet the Senator from New Jersey and I can agree that this is a very important position. I'm sure the Senator believes that, and I agree with him 100%. And I just want to take a minute to say why I think it's important and why I think we need to actually vote on her nomination. You know, a decade ago, almost, 2014, after the Russian incursion into Ukraine, NATO allies finally recognized that they were not spending enough, our NATO allies, on their own defense and on our common defense, and so they pledged as a group to commit at least 2% of their respective GDPs to their own defense and to meet that target by 2024. So far, large numbers of them are not on track to do so. In fact, Ms. Smith said in a response to my own questions about this, she said, it is clear that a group of allies will fail to deliver on this pledge by 2024, and currently another group are not close to meeting it, although they say they hope to make up the difference. Here's my point. The security situation has not improved since 2014. It has deteriorated. Russia is still, as we speak, menacing Ukraine, and now China is menacing Taiwan. The United States is already facing hard choices, and we're going to face harder choices yet, about how we allocate our defense resources, which are scarce, how we allocate our force posture, how we structure our force posture in a world that is growing more dangerous. And the China threat in particular is one that is going to force us to make difficult choices about what we prioritize in the Asia-Pacific versus what we prioritize in Europe. Bottom line is we need our allies to not only meet their 2% commitment, we need them to do more in Europe for their own defense, because we must focus on the deteriorating security situation in the Indo-Pacific, in the Asia-Pacific, with regard to China and its imperial ambitions in Taiwan. I've asked Ms. Smith for her commitment that she will press our NATO allies not only to meet their 2% commitment, but to revise that commitment so that we can have a truly common defense in this era of multiplying challenges and deteriorating security. She's refused, unfortunately, to give me that commitment. Now, I can't block her nomination, but I can ask that we take a vote on it. And so for that reason, in a moment here, when Senator Menendez brings her nomination to the floor, I will object and ask for a vote on her in particular, and I will, as I said, object to others on behalf of my colleagues. With those comments, on behalf of my colleagues and myself, I object.
The objection is heard.
Mr. President,
Senator from New Jersey.
it's disingenuous to suggest that this can all happen by the majority leader and 60 votes. There were no calls when Republicans controlled this chamber for votes on each and every nominee. On the contrary, as the leader said, large numbers of Trump nominees to the State Department for ambassadorial or State Department positions were passed unvoiced. They were passed unvoiced. And I don't know, in the case of NATO, I think the nominee made it very clear before the committee. I know that our colleague is not a member of that particular committee, but she made it very clear before the committee that she was advocating for all of our allies to reach their 2% commitment. And what better way to achieve it than to actually have an ambassador at NATO to pursue that goal? But if you don't have anybody there, guess what? You can't pursue that goal. So let me try again. I want to ask that it be in order to make the same request with respect to Executive Calendar 327, Ann A. Witkowski of Maryland to be an Assistant Secretary of State for Conflict and Stabilization Operations.
Is there objection?
Mr. President, on behalf of my colleagues and myself, I object.
The objection is heard.
Okay, so we will continue to have conflict and stabilization without anybody being in charge. I ask that it be in order to make the same request with respect to Executive Calendar 318, Christopher P. Liu of Virginia to be representative of the United States of America to the United Nations for UN Management and Reform with the rank of ambassador.
Is there objection?
Mr. President, on behalf of my colleagues, I object.
The objection is heard.
Here's an example. We want reform at the UN, but we can't put the person there in charge of helping us reform the UN. I ask that it be in order to make the same request with respect to Executive Calendar 462, Julieta Valls Noyes of Virginia, career member of the Senior Foreign Service, class of career minister, to be an Assistant Secretary of State, Population, Refugees, and Migration.
Is there objection?
Mr. President, on behalf of my colleagues and myself, I object.
The objection is heard.
All right. Heard a lot of my colleagues talk about how we should get more SIV people from Afghanistan. This is the person who could help us do it. I ask that it be in order to make the same request with respect to Executive Calendar 437, Julianne Smith of Michigan to be the United States Permanent Representative on the Council of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization with a rank and status of Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary.
Is there objection?
Mr. President, I object.
The objection is heard.
I ask that it be in order to make the same request with respect to Executive Calendar 461, Marcia Stephens Bloom Bernacat of New Jersey, a career member of the Senior Foreign Service class of the Minister Council to be Director General of the Foreign Service.
Is there objection?
Mr. President, on behalf of my colleagues and myself, I object.
The objection is heard.
I can't wait to hear the next objection to someone who would be the ambassador to Israel. To Israel. I ask that it be in order to make the same request with respect to Executive Calendar 452, Thomas R. Nides of Minnesota to be the Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the United States of America to the State of Israel.
Is there objection?
Mr. President, on behalf of my colleagues, I object.
The objection is heard.
So we will have no ambassador in Israel as we deal with the challenges of Iran and others in the region. It is mind-boggling all of those who get up here and talk about our ally, the State of Israel, the importance of the State of Israel, but we won't have an ambassador there to help us meet the challenges that Israel has. I ask that it be in order to make the same request with respect to Executive Calendar 443, Michael Carpenter of the District of Columbia to be the U.S. representative to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe with the rank of ambassador.
Is there objection?
Mr. President, on behalf of my colleagues, I object.
The objection is heard.
Well, let's see if we get a lucky one. I ask that it be in order. Let me withdraw that. I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the consideration of the following nomination. Executive Calendar number 453, David M. Cohen of Pennsylvania to be Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the United States of America to Canada. That the Senate vote on confirmation of the nomination. The motion to reconsider be considered laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate. That no further motions be in order to the nomination. That the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action.
Is there objection? Without objection. The clerk will report.
Nomination, Department of State, David L. Cohen of Pennsylvania to be Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the United States of America to Canada.
The question appears on the nomination.
Yeas and nays?
All those in
Oh, I'm sorry, withdraw that.
all those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The nomination is confirmed.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President,